Welcome back, everybody, to the Be the Frequency podcast, or what maybe you're watching it on YouTube. But I'm sitting with one of my favorite people. Megan and I have been friends for a long time, years at this point, and she even lived in Las Vegas for a little while with me, which was really fun. So we were able to like meet up and things like that. And it's fun to take your friendships from an online to like an in person. And nobody, I think, I shouldn't say nobody, but there are very few people.
Oh, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Listen, I hold you in high regard.
Um,
There are very few people, I think, that when you meet them in person, they are so real. And the way that they speak online and the way that they show up online is also the way that they are in person, and have built a brand that is so shows so many different facets of who they are. And that's part of why people love them. I think it's not just the one thing, I think that so many times that you're told to niche down in business and to only talk about one thing. And Meg does such a great job of talking about many different things and being really, really personable. And I cannot be any more happy to have you here just chatting with you.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so sweet. I'm gonna like listen to this intro over and over again. Thank you so much. No, I appreciate you for saying that. That's a really important thing to me. I wanted to, and it's just like I don't know if it was a quote I heard the other day or something, but about how much exhaustion people have from trying to be someone they're not online. And so it's funny, a question I get a lot is like, how do you do it all? How do you have the energy to do it all? And I think that's part of it is I'm literally being myself. So
Yeah.
I'm not using that energy to like, okay, I got to put on a face today, even subconsciously. Like we don't realize we're doing it sometimes.
Oh,
So
100%.
I
It's
think
like
this
that
helps.
idea of masking, right? Like you feel like you have to be a certain person in certain environments. And when you
Yeah,
become really good at it, it's like it just turns on. You don't have to think like there's no gearing up, so to
yeah,
speak. Um,
exactly.
but I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned the word authenticity because I was listening to, gosh, I wish I could remember what their name was, but they were talking about how authenticity is kind of not to say a new concept,
Mhm.
but it's something that until we had like social media and all of this interface of seeing so many different people, it was something that really hasn't become quote unquote this epidemic of people having a hard time being authentic
Mhm.
until probably the past like 25-ish years because of their exposure to again the way that people present and this idea of like a highlight reel, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. They think they have to be perceived a certain way, and it's so the opposite because people are really attracted to real. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like, "Man, I might not agree with everything this person is doing or saying, but I like them because they're just themselves. Like there's something about
Yeah.
them." You know?
And I think that's why we're kind of transitioning out of like the celebrity being the face of all these like brands and these, when they're thinking about marketing, they're no longer thinking of just like celebrities or high profile people. They're thinking of not just big influencers, people like Alex Earl and stuff like that from TikTok, but you're also looking at micro influencers. How do
Yeah.
real people actually sell? Which I think is a great conversation for us to have
Yeah.
because you have a very like distinct, which is literally in the word of your program. It's called the
Yeah.
distinctive edge framework. And
Mhm.
you really talk about how to really stand out
Yeah.
and create this framework for your business, for selling. Tell me a little bit about like your like how you came
Yeah.
to this realization. Like again, no matter if you're like an influencer wanting to sell your own stuff or if you already are an entrepreneur, like how do you get literally the distinctive edge from other people?
Yeah, no, I love this question. And honestly, this I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about this too, but it kind of came to be after my postpartum experience was so like jarring and just lost myself. I was like, who am I in business? Loved being a mom, and that was like so great. And I felt like the number one identity before that for me was being a business owner. Was the thing I was most attached to, being a successful business owner. And then I felt so lost in it. And so this process really helped me kind of get that back. I think the reason is I think that one of the reasons I felt so lost is because the version I was before I had my boys was not in alignment, for to use that word. It was what I had done for years and it worked and it was fine, but I became a basic business coach. I really did. Like I was just like,
I love that you like, I'm
oh,
gonna call myself out.
I was so basic and I look back and I'm like, I helped a lot of people. I loved my clients. So I feel like bad saying that because I don't want anyone during that time period to think I didn't love them and I loved
I
working
mean,
with.
I was one of those people.
It's true.
So
I guess that's true. And I loved the work I did. And when I came back, I realized there were changes I should have made way before my boys were born, but I just was comfortable. And that's
uh,
the beauty of kids sometimes is they force you to make those changes. I was like,
uh,
some gotta give. And so I realized like I need to figure out like what is my thing? What am I really great at? What do I love doing? And stop trying to be everything to everyone. Can I help people with funnels? Sure. Can I help them with sales? Yes. Can I help them with launches? 100%. But if I had to only do one thing all day, every day, what would that be? And to me, that's helping people find what's that like thing about you and the way you work with people that we can market as different from other competitors. That's
yes.
what I love helping people with. It's like that little micro piece. And then that informs everything else. So all the other aspects are still in my process. But the first part is going, what's your story? What's your unique process? What does your ideal client need to hear? And we kind of have a little trifecta with those three where we create what I call your distinctive edge. I had to do that for myself. That's why I figured that process out is I was like, what is my story? What is my process? What do I love helping people do? What do clients actually want? Because if you just talk about what you want and it's not in alignment with what they want, the messaging's gonna go right over their head. And so it took a long time, but I finally got that and figured it out, and that's when things started really taking off. So that's kind of like the little intro into the
I
process.
love that. Well, and really, here's something that kind of came to me while you're talking is that it's almost like you're helping them find their voice in their business. And if you guys don't follow her already on social media, okay, you have to at Megan Yelaney. Okay. She is a theater loving, she will sing sometimes in her content. It is like, and you know this from being in, everybody has their kind of flair or their way and their own like spin on the way they portray different characters.
Yeah.
And, when people are cast for roles, it's because they're like, I want, yes, these are both really great leads, but this person kind of
Mhm.
exudes this type of energy. I want that. And
Yes.
so it's interesting because I think to see that correlation of like how you've taken your background in musical theater
Mhm.
and having to have this very, like, distinct voice and kind of, like, who you are and the type of roles that you want and, like, things like that.
Mhm.
Basically, it's just transferred over into
Yeah.
business development of, like, how do you separate yourself when you go into, yeah, this is, you're selling yourself to all of these potential clients, like, how do
Yep.
you stand out and say,
Yep.
"I'm the best person for the role?"
Exactly, and it's very much like you said, it is an energy thing, and I think so many people, it's hard, they're like, "What does that mean? How do I exude this energy?" And it's really hard for them to, like, make it tangible, and so the process that I take people through helps make it tangible. It's like, I hands down, 90% of the time that I look at someone's origin story that I have them go through, which I'll make sure we give your people, like, the free gift I have that walks them through that process, but every time I do that with someone, it's 90%. I can see what their thing is. I'm like, "Oh, well, this is your thing from your story." And it's hard for us to see that sometimes. And I'm like, "Wait, no, no, this is your thing. You were able to do this how?" Like, I had one client in particular who helped people, with just online coaches, online fitness coaches specifically, sign more clients. But she was kept saying with social media, she doesn't really like social media,
Yeah,
and
and
she
that's
can
something.
do it
Yeah.
and she's good. It's not that she's bad at it, but, like, everyone says that. She built such a successful, like, business right off the bat with all of her networking in person and these, like, fitness expos and all. I'm like, "That's your jam," and I'm reading through her story, I'm like, "Wait, why is this not your thing? Why is this not your thing?" And it just kind of like a light bulb went off, and so our story really leaves clues that we sometimes are too close to it to see, and so that's, like, a huge place to start if you're like, what's the energy I bring? It's like, look at the success or your past leaves clues, right, for where you're gonna head.
Well, and, like, even in the theme of this podcast of, like, how do you become the frequency? Like, how do you be the frequency of somebody like this person that you're becoming? And you
Yeah.
have to understand that there's all this past history that brings you to this person that you're wanting to become. But I always kind of say, and people that come to me for like healing work or nervous system work, that I'm like, at that time, it served a purpose. Like, if I needed to learn forgiveness, If I needed to learn empathy, I would have to be if I needed to learn forgiveness, like, somebody would have to do something for me to not trust them anymore,
Yep.
for
Mm.
me to, not want to continue that relationship. Like, if I was like, "I love them so much, I need to learn to forgive them," they would have to transgress, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times these experiences that the people have prior, they don't realize, like, how much that's actually shaping and informing
Mhm.
what they're doing now. And part of what their gifts are, there's a reason that you're leaning into, again, like, more
Yeah.
in-person stuff. It is funny because I think so many people think that I think it's you need to, at this point, if you have a business, you have to have something online, something where somebody can find you online. But I think people think that they have to have all this, like, social media content
Yeah.
and all of this presence there. And it's like, if that's where your people are finding you, then don't put all your eggs into that basket. Like, do
Yeah.
what's working for you,
Yeah. If you
and,
don't
like,
have
let
to.
this just be a supplement.
Exactly. That's like a huge conversation I'm having with clients right now is they're so tired of social media and they're getting clients on social. So it's not like they're not resentful because they're like, I can't be resentful for what's given me my livelihood. And I just want to prioritize another way. Like, I know there's another way. I've really leaned into that this year. I feel like almost half of my clients have come from other people's audiences and collaborations and podcasts and being in
Yeah.
summits and bundles and all these other things that bring in this level of, like, trust when they come from someone else. They're like, "Hey, I sign off on this person." Great. They already trust you more than a
Yeah.
random person who's scrolling on Instagram who
Yeah.
just happened to find your video. They weren't intentionally looking for it, most of them, you know? So, I just find it so smart now to have, like you said, both, but start to, like, one of my clients, were really mapping out her offline strategy because she keeps saying, "I don't wanna have to use social media anymore," but we're not really doing anything about it. So I'm like, "We've gotta go do something about that then." Let's, like,
Yeah.
put the motion, in there
Yeah.
that you really can prioritize offline opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is interesting because it's almost like you have to start to peel away these things that you think you should be doing. And I
Yeah.
think that applies to so many times. You're like, whether it's in business, whether it's in health, whether it's in whatever it's in,
Yeah.
you think this is the strategy to get here, right? It's like this trainer said this in order to lose 20 pounds. This nutritionist said this. This is like it's Bible. I have to do this.
Ah,
And I like this conversation because we're talking about, like, you need to honor who you are at your core and things that you enjoy, things that light you up, things that you're naturally good at. Those things are the things that bring you not only money or fulfillment or whatever, but those are the things that make it so you don't want to burn your business down, or you don't want to give up after 3 weeks, or you don't want to.
yes. Oh my gosh. And that's where I was when I came back postpartum. I was like, "Man, I do not like this. I do not wanna talk about this topic anymore. Oh my gosh, I'm going crazy." And it's like, I don't you're gonna have weeks where, like, for example, I do client work only Tuesdays through Thursdays, and it's a busy Tuesday through Thursday, let's just say that. It's, like, packed to the brim.
Yeah.
But Fridays to Mondays, it's, like, my own stuff, and then I get
Yeah.
to really be creative, and I love that space, and I love my clients. But, when you're serving 3 days in a row, it can be a lot. So sometimes on Tuesday mornings, I might wake up a little, I don't wanna say anxious, but maybe with a little bit of like, "Okay,
Yeah. It's
we've
like you
got
got to pull the bootstraps up, you're like, here
we
we
got
go.
a lot to do today," and
It's a little
you
pep
had
talk.
a tough time with a client or whatever. We all have that, right? But at the end of the day, once I get in the groove, I love what I do, and I'm not like, "Oh, I got these calls today." If that's how you feel every single day, it's like, we gotta take a step back because then you're just in a job you don't wanna be in, you know? So
You've
it's
traded,
really
like, a 9 to 5 that you hate for an all the time
yeah.
that you hate.
It's a gut check,
Yeah.
that it's funny when you were saying doing things that's expected, the first thing that came to mind for me was motherhood. Oh my gosh, there were so
Mhm.
many things when I became a mom that I was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna do that," or like, and I would
And
get
you're like, "I
judged,
should have never said never."
and I'm like, "Whoa." I remember sleep training, I was like, "It's so cruel, I could never do that." Oh my gosh, have
Have
month
twins.
boys. Nope, we're sleep training, and it worked like a charm, and they sleep amazing now. Like,
Yeah.
it was just so funny because I totally changed my tune, and I felt, like, bad about that. I'm like, "No, we had to do what was best for us and our family. Our boys are super happy, super healthy, we're all good." And it's just so many things in motherhood I totally flipped on. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Kidding."
Yeah. Well, what are some other things? Because a lot of people that are listening to this are kind of
Yeah.
in that age range, whether their kids are
Yeah.
they're just starting families or they're thinking about families, or they're like me, who I'm like, you got kids in high school, but you're
Yeah.
still making all these like adjustments for
Yeah.
what you want to do with your life and the role that you play as like a mother. What are some big like things that you're like, I had to let go of?
Mm,
I'm not talking like a physical adjustment. I'm talking
yeah.
more like identity things. Like, what are some identity things that changed for you as
Ooh.
you're trying to balance both entrepreneurship and motherhood? And like, how did that kind of fall?
It's so wild. It's like people warn you about it, but you just kind of ignore it. I feel like you always think you're gonna be the exception to the rule. And I remember thinking that I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be totally fine. And like the second they came out, I was like, I'm not a business owner anymore. I'm just a mom. Like that's it. That's all I am right now, you
Mm.
know? And for the first 2 months, like that's pretty much all I was. I had twins, by the way, for those listening who don't know. Because when I'm saying like my boys, I had twin that is double trouble. It's all I've known, so I have never had one. So it was yeah, it was hard, but it was like that's all we kind of knew. We joke that we want another just to be like, "Oh, this is so easy."
Just I can tell everybody, guys, one is nothing.
Guys, come on. But so when they came into the world, it was like nothing mattered, as it should be for the first few months when like it's pure survival. So that
Yeah.
felt like normal. I wasn't worried about that because I'm like, this is probably how it should be, right? It's like that's your job is to keep them alive. And then when I started to come back to work, even slowly, I came very slowly back. I had like one call a week, then a private client here and there, like very small adjustments. But even that, I just felt a little like, I don't know if imposter syndrome's the word, but I just didn't care as much about what I was talking about
Mm.
or what I was coaching on. And that's when I had to ask myself, is it because of them? Or is it because I wasn't interested in it before and I just never changed it? And they're forcing me to like look at this now. Because I remember one of the biggest things I had to launch that did not go well. And I was like, man, if I'm going to be away from them, I better be making bank or love what I'm doing. Ideally, both. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And neither happened in that launch. I was like, well, this is a waste of time. Like, why, if I'm going to be away from them, it has to be worth it.
Yeah.
And so I would say for me, it was a good, which I know sounds like a lot of time. Maybe to some people it doesn't sound like a lot of time. It was a good 9 or 10 months of like, what am I doing with my business? I had a very short chunk of time, but it was like a month where I was seriously considering not keeping it, which is wild to think about because that
Yeah.
was my number one identity, for years since like 2017 was 2016 even. Like that was my jam. If you ask people, "Who are you?" It was the first thing I would answer. Is I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I'm a business owner, right? It's like the first thing. And so it was very jarring to now have this other identity that so surpassed it and always will. But there was a moment I thought, that's all I want. And I had to really sit with that. And my husband was like, my income is like our main income. So he was like, okay, you gotta, okay, hold on a second. Like he started his business again, very happy to. It was like all happened for a reason, right? And we had to like take a second. And I'm so glad I did because it wasn't that I didn't want a business, it's that I didn't want the one I had. So for me, the balancing of the identities, it's not even like, when people say the work-life balance thing, I think it's seasonal. That's what I've noticed in
Yeah.
the last year and a half. I feel like I've been really back in my game for it's about a year now. So it's about 10 months postpartum. They're going to be 2 very soon. So it's been about a year that I felt like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. Definitely since the beginning of this year that I'm like, we're good to go. And I think it's letting go of the balance thing and saying there's
Yes.
so for example, I'm in a busy season right now as we're recording this. I'm in a very busy work season. We're ramping up for Black Friday. We've got end of the year stuff happening, all this stuff. In June, I was in a very busy season doing my first launch publicly in over a year, rebrand. I was working more hours than I normally do and normally want to. Then summer, very light season. I went to a medium and she was so funny. She was like, enjoy this summer because your fall's going to be crazy. And she was very right. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy prediction as for most people.
Yeah, but sometimes, like, you're like, they could it could be sad, it could be,
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah. And it was very like, you have to enjoy this. So my weekends, I didn't work. I was just like really enjoying it and like soaking it up. I was with the boys way more. Mike was gone for a week. I was with him all the time. Like, so it's really a seasonal thing I've noticed. And I think that's what helps me, I guess, like balance the two identities is yes, to me, mom will always be number one if I have to rank them, obviously.
Yeah.
And I also like don't think I could be a stay-at-home mom. I really don't think I could. And I thought for a second that's what I was meant to do. And now that I'm back in the game, I'm like, no way. I am meant to also do something in this arena for sure. Will it look exactly like this in a few years? Who knows? I don't know. But I think the balance for me too, not only the seasonal thing, is longer seasons there too. Once they're 5 and in school, we're going to ramp this up. But this is such precious, awesome time that I'm never going to get that back. I can always start. So for me, that's also something that I'm kind of like telling myself is, hey, we're going to get back to some of those other goals when they're at this point. And I know teenagers bring a whole new slew of things, but the actual time I'll have during the day back more than I do now. So I hope that makes sense. But like that helped me wrestle with letting myself feel very lost for about 10 months. And even though it was really hard going, this is the process. And I'm so glad because if I tried to force stuff, I probably would have just imploded it all and quit altogether. So I'm really glad I gave myself that space.
Well, and even just I think it's so reassuring. I hope all of the people who are like listening or watching are hearing that this is somebody who's making great money prior to having children.
Yeah.
Thought this was her thing. It is her thing. And she's very, very talented at this, but still has these moments where other things in life take precedence. Other parts of your life are also important.
Yeah.
And it can make you feel and doubt some of your skills, some of your talents, what you think you're meant to do. Like how much of a mind fuck that can be to be like, this is my identity. I think I will always do this. Even just entrepreneurship, creating money for yourself as opposed to working for somebody else. When you identify with that like framework or that belief system, it can be a really hard pill to swallow that I no longer identify with that.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure I identify with working for somebody else. And how do I navigate being this to children, being
Yeah.
this role, while also there are other parts of me too. Like, how do I do that? And that it's totally normal.
Yes. Totally
You
normal.
feel, yeah, to feel these things where you're like, I'm not always inspired. I'm not always motivated. There are
No.
parts of my business that really suck the life out of me sometimes. And then there are parts of my business where I feel like I'm on fire and they can be happening at the exact same time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. One of my old mentors, she got this from her mentor, who probably got it from his mentor. Everyone gets something from everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to us, her mentor said, your business is not meant to entertain you. And I loved that because there's such a like, I think especially in the mindset, spiritual world, there can be a lot of this where it's like, if you're, like you just said, if you're not feeling inspired, if you're not feeling creative, there's plenty of days I don't feel creative. There's plenty of days probably the marketing director at Target doesn't feel creative. They still have to put out their plans. They still have to support
They
their
still have
business,
to
you
market
know?
product and like there still has to be sales happening. And like
Yeah. It's
that's
like,
a huge shift for a lot of people is I think
yeah.
thinking that their business, especially if they're kind of in the newer realm, I would say if
Yeah.
you've been in business for like under 5 years and that still
Yep.
is new,
Yep.
or you still have a full time and you're doing this, is that it's not a hobby. If you're
No.
treating it like a hobby, it will always be the only thing you work on when you're inspired.
Exactly. And it's like, that's not going to bring you in consistent income. When I first went into business, I did network marketing and I approached it that way. I would like do it when it was fun. And so it would bring in some money and then I would stop and I'm like, it's not bringing in money. I'm like, well, you're literally not doing anything to bring in
Same.
money. Like, like
Yeah.
I was the problem. And it's funny, I was speaking at an event a couple weeks ago in New York and we were talking, I was sharing my story and just talking about how we had a tough 5 years, but a tough 2 years, like thing after thing after thing after thing just hit us. And a lot of people ask, how did you get through that? How did you like keep showing up and all that? And I said, because I haven't built this business that only survives if I'm creative. And if you're only creating content, for example, let's just say content, because that's such a big thing for people. When you're creative and you have no system to pull from, then yeah, life's going to Life and
I
shit, what do I do?
Yeah, I literally just recorded a TikTok this morning. We're clearly on the same like
I
wavelength
love it. Of course we
because
are.
I saw a quote that says systems work when emotions don't. I
Yes.
was like, this is
So
exactly it. Yeah, because like as I've built out like the energetics of entrepreneurship and like understanding which parts of your business kind of reside in each energy center, and you can always take the quiz to find out which is kind of your superpower. I'll put that in the show notes. But it's like you start to understand that like if you're always constantly relying on like like intrinsic feeling of I feel creative today, I feel motivated today, I feel inspired today, that those are emotions and they're fleeting. So if you don't
yeah,
have any systems set up, you don't actually have any support, which is all in your root chakra, by the way, is something that's repeatable and makes you feel safe.
yeah,
It's something that you can rely on. There's consistency, there's safety. And
yeah.
so to always be trying to navigate the business when you just feel good, that's a lot riding on emotions that are constantly up and down all day long, all month long, all year long.
Yes. Oh my, it sounds so exhausting to me. And,
Yes.
that's why if you can have a process that you can pull from. And one of the reasons in the first part of my process, my framework is helping people figure out what their framework is and their story. If you can have that unlock, you can literally create content pulling from that. You can go, okay, great. What's the first part of my process when I help people? I'm going to create a story about that. And
Yeah.
you can have another thing too is like, have a backlog of stuff. Have whether it's stuff you've posted or you've emailed, you can repurpose that, but have a backlog so you have stuff for those times that you're like, I had a week, I cannot put anything out.
Yeah.
And also, I'll add to it, it's okay to have a week off of marketing. Like, I think sometimes people get so nervous if they disappear, like everything's gonna crash
That
and
their
burn.
views are gonna go down and
Yeah,
nobody's gonna know who they are anymore. I'm like,
like, you're
"Bro,
fine.
you'll be fine."
No one's paying that much attention to you
Yeah.
as
Yeah. It's like when people go to the gym and they're like, I'm scared I'm gonna be looked at like weird for working out." I was like, "I promise you, everyone is way more concerned about what they look like at the gym than they are about what you look like at the
Oh,
gym."
100%. Yeah, that's why I don't go to the gym, and I know that. I'm like, "Megan, you know
Problem
better.
solved.
No one's looking at you." It's such a self-centered thing to think. Everyone's looking at me. It's like, no one's looking at you.
Yeah. Well, and even just what people think about me. What are they gonna think about my content? What are they gonna think when I start doing this thing? What are they gonna think about.
Yep.
And I'm just like, the reality is nobody actually gives a shit what you're doing. And
Yeah.
especially if you're selling stuff, they only care if whatever you're selling is gonna help them.
That's such a good point. Like, I remember I was talking to someone recently, a client who wanted to share her story, and she was nervous to share it. And I said, "What are you nervous about?" And she's like, "I'm really nervous that it's gonna get no reaction, like no comments." And I said, "Okay, great. So it's not getting comments now because it's not out." She's like, "Yeah, I guess that's true." So it's like the worst thing that can happen is no one responds. So it's this you're literally living it right now. It's the same thing
Yeah.
that's happening now because it's not out there. And so that like helped her go, "Oh yeah, that's not that bad. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be okay if no one responds." And we always make things mean so much about us. And it's like,
Yeah. Well,
actually,
and
this is
so
amazing
it's
about you.
just yeah, and it's interesting, like, I'm something I realized I've been kind of working through the past year is that as I finished up, like, my PhD and things like that, thinking like, "Okay, once I get this, then, like, I'll
Mhm.
be credible, I'll be more all of these things, and then I'll share whatever on social media and it'll be fine because 'cause I'll, like, know my shit." And I know my shit and people still comment, like, my content finds like the dark corners of TikTok where people are like angry about the world and
Yeah.
don't feel listened to in their own lives, but they feel safe on the keyboard. And so they like go to town about
Yep.
things that you're just like, really?
Yeah.
And I think one of the best ways to get over this sense of like parts of me can't be seen by other people, or I don't feel valuable, or I don't feel, or again, I don't feel like I'm scared to get feedback, is to
Yeah.
just start doing it
Yes.
because it lessens that. It's like that exposure therapy, almost like I put something out and nothing really happened.
Yep.
Nothing happened. Or again, it found the angry side of the internet and you realize that you're like, oh, they're angry. They've
Yeah.
literally posted not one video.
Yeah.
They've done nothing. They've done no creating.
Yep.
They've got plenty to say about what I'm creating.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so
Yeah.
interesting the people who comment. I always am thinking they're like in their grandma's basement and have a
I always say
really
his grandma, because I feel the same.
sad
It's
life,
like
right? Like that
yeah,
I always feel
grandma's, like,
bad for them.
taken the people that you're like, what are we going to
Um,
do with them? We're just send them to grandma's.
yeah, send 'em to grandma's basement. I always feel bad. I'm like, I feel bad for you that you commented that. I like to watch reality TV. It's like my guilty pleasure. And I would never think of commenting on one of these people's pages. And like, sure, they put themselves on these shows and they're ridiculous. Yes. But do they deserve to be like told that they should die and all of the stuff that they get? I'm like, who's commenting that stuff? Who even died?
I bet you if you were an entrepreneur, you would have 97 million other things to do than sit and troll the internet.
I'm like,
Hobby.
I might think I would never think you should die, but, like, I might think some negative things sometimes about certain people on reality TV. I would never go and comment it on someone. I'm like, "Who's actually going and doing this right now?" This is wild to me. It's so
So
crazy.
user number 9735412.
It's always that
That's
person.
Yeah.
I
Their
know.
like burner account, you know.
Yeah, right. Oh, so funny.
But yeah, and I mean, even in that sense of like, again, you've done such a good job of like transitioning of guys. When her and I first met, she shared a ton of business stuff and not
Mm,
as much personal stuff. And you start to put a lot more personal things out there. Again, we
yeah,
talked about like your theater, your kids, your your marriage.
yeah,
And I'm sure at first it was a little like, I always joke
yes.
like my asshole chakra, like when you do that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you're like, I want to be accepted by the tribe. I want to be accepted by the community. And that's a lot of root stuff is community and
Yes.
things like that, feeling safe within
Mhm.
that. And so you start sharing some of these things. And I'm sure it was like a little bit of like worried in the feedback, but I'd really love for you to actually talk about how like showing all these different parts of you has actually helped your brand grow.
Mhm.
Because I mean, she had taglines that were, you guys, what was your awkward one? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, pretty awkward entrepreneur.
Pretty awkward. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think well, right now, the new brand, I think one thing you're saying too that is a good, as you're saying this, I'm like, oh, this is a good reflection. Like I should do this reflection more often. But my new brand like statement on my website is helping you become the coach people are lining up to work with. Build a brand so clear, powerful, and true to you that you're impossible to ignore. And back in the day, I definitely think I did a good job of showing my personality that was, like, creating my whole brand,
Yeah.
brand, and sharing, like, my humor and little things like that. But to your point, I didn't necessarily share, like, life stuff as much, and probably because life was actually hard, and I was, like, nervous because I thought, "Oh,
Yeah.
perfect if I'm not presenting this perfect persona, then I'm gonna be judged," which I found it was completely the opposite. And then in 2020, my husband and I separated, and we got back together 6 months later, and I shared about it a year later in, like, I think maybe March or April
Oh,
of the next year. And I shared that story, and I was so shocked. 1, it went viral and brought in a lot of the trolls, so we got a lot of those nice
yeah.
trolls.
See, yeah, it's things that you're worried about, but then you're like, "Ooh." Yeah.
But the majority was, like, so many entrepreneurs, so many women messaged me being like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing this. I am so struggling," like and it was a lot of, like, masculine, feminine balancing and
Yeah.
being the breadwinner and all that jazz. Now, we had our stuff was way before I became an entrepreneur, but it exacerbated it for sure. But that was, like, the opening for me to, like, wow, this really resonated with people. This got a lot of conversations happening. Then I started to have people literally say they hired me because they saw how I was remodeling my business to make my marriage first. And I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Like me sharing that, like literally resulted in way more ideal clients, which was really
Yeah.
interesting. And then I started to just share life stuff that was happening. And I think the whole premise of me sharing these little bits of life is that we're still here, where our business supports it. And that's the biggest thing is like, keep going. Like, we're still here after all of this stuff. You can do it too. Whereas I've talked to a lot of people who on the front, they look like a life is perfect and it is not. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't need to share the details. Like, not everyone wants to share as detailed. And I get that you don't have to. But it's so inspiring that you're still making this money and you're still prioritizing all this stuff as you're managing this stuff. Like, you
Yeah.
should share about that, you know? And so I
Well, and
just
again, people want to buy from real people.
yes, they wanna buy from real people, and not everyone is as comfortable. So I think it's, like, I was, like, put on this earth because I am comfortable sharing it, and my husband's all for it. He's very much he doesn't care. He's such an open book that we're like, "Okay, I feel like that's part of my mission." My mission is to show people that you can still have all this stuff happening and create a business and keep
Yeah.
going and all that jazz.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like as it's almost like your business and like brand awareness and clarity seemed to grow the
Yeah.
more that you shared these things that were unique about you. Again, like
Mhm.
going through a separation, like having this other thing that you enjoy and doing musical theater.
Yeah.
And, even, sharing stuff that was going on with your dad when your dad got sick
Yeah.
before he passed. Like there were so many things that you shared, and everybody has a parent.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be loved.
Yep.
Everybody feels these, like, small intrinsic things, and so many times we shy away from that sense of vulnerability, but also exposure. And I think to feel exposed like that and kind of let people into a world that, you're afraid of judgment, and because you see but and I always come back to, and I think I talked about this in another podcast, but I come back to, if people like Taylor Swift, who are billionaires,
Yeah.
have a raving fan base, but they also have a raving hate section
Yeah.
constantly.
For sure.
The the aim is never to really be liked by everybody. It's for you to like yourself.
Yes.
And
Ooh.
I feel like the more that you do these things that we're talking about of like,
Mhm.
okay, recognize like what's not working for me and
Yes.
how do I be more myself more often?
Yes.
Work becomes easier, relationships become easier, like things that
Mm.
you like you're able to be like, I can take these weekends off and like work will be there.
Yep.
I
And it's
don't
just like the energy thing. When you're being yourself, you're not the energy to pretend to be someone else is I've done it. It's exhausting. I feel like
Yeah.
I've done it. It's exhausting and it's just you realize I think this is the beauty too of having kids, honestly. It puts a lot of perspective, a lot of into perspective. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
it's so interesting too, because you look at them and you're like, we all started this innocently. You look at
Yes.
the evil in the world and the evil
Yeah.
people. They all started as these innocent babies, like,
Yeah.
whoa, and if we can all just, like, find that again, like, cheesy as that sounds, it's this, like, naivete. It's been so beautiful in that way, and just to see how they fall, get right back up, fall, cry
Yep.
hysterically, in the next second, they're laughing and running around. I'm like, "Whoa, you just bounced back from that real quick. Why
Yeah.
back from this quicker?" You know?
Well, I was like, like the actual like physical emotion that you have lasts anywhere between 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So anything beyond that is you reliving or you re-experiencing or exacerbating your
Yes.
emotion.
Oh my gosh, that's huge.
Yeah.
Oh, you just hit
And
me with that. Yeah.
well, and when you start to think about that, you're like, the amount of times that I have felt frustrated for, or irritated or whatever for days, like that's me.
That's me.
That's me and my, when we talk about being a little baby and like we all kind of started this way, like I've learned to behave like this in my mind because behaving like this keeps me from not exploring why I'm frustrated. I'm just going to be
Wow.
frustrated and be mad instead of being like, well, why does that even bother you? It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. It always comes back to that, right? It really
Yeah.
is like I had a coach a long time ago that did that exercise with us for like if you had a launch and it didn't go well, like what's the worst that could happen if it doesn't go well? You're nervous about a launch, great. And we'd always do the worst case scenario. Okay, then what? Then what? Then what? And we were always fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna be fine. Like we're always
Yeah.
gonna be okay.
It's fine. You like
Yeah.
table it for a little while, reassess like why nobody
Yeah.
signed up, look at the metrics, like just use it as like stop making content or whatever means something about you,
Yes.
all the comments, all the things, how your business is doing. And you just start to look at, okay, I actually didn't do very many pieces of content. In
Yeah.
a world where more and more people are creating content, there's something like 35% more content going out on Instagram this past year. And like the user is actually down by like 16% or something like that. So which is wild.
That's
So that means
wild.
I know.
Oh my
Cause
God.
then you're like, there's all this content for people to consume
Yeah.
and less people are consuming it, which means that in order to get in front of the eyes, I actually probably have to create more content or be better at my hook, be
Yeah.
better at my messaging, the words that I'm using to help drive people and interest there.
Yep.
Or maybe I try a different platform. I've had a lot more success on TikTok than I have on Instagram.
Yeah, that's
And so
interesting.
you
I
just
mean,
never know.
that makes sense with the niche. I think that makes a lot of sense for any niche topic. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, go on TikTok. I need to go on TikTok."
Mhm.
But yeah, it's so
It's fun over there.
I had it for my twin account and I loved it, and I just haven't done it for my business account yet. But
Yeah.
that makes so much sense, and it's funny, I was having this conversation with a client the other day who she bought, a brick. Have you seen that for your phone?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And she's like, "I have to s."
I've been advertised to it. I don't really know what it
Okay.
is, though.
She's like, "I have to stop going on Instagram," and it makes it so where you can only unlock it if you, like, put your phone next to it, so if you're out of the house and you're like, the brick is on, you can't unlock
Every teenage
it.
parent's dream.
Right? Like, I was like, "Wait, this is amazing." Because she's like, "I just kept finding myself scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I hated it. I was, like, checking my views every 5 minutes." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we all can relate to that, right?" How many times do we have to watch our own stories? It's kind of ridiculous, actually. And so she was like, I need to block this off." But she, as well as myself and a lot of other friends, I'm like, I'm definitely trying, at least actively, to spend less time on these apps,
Yeah.
especially Instagram. Yet that's where I go to market a lot of my stuff and market other places, but that's like the number one probably. So that's really interesting you said that because I'm personally trying to spend less time on it too.
Yeah.
Wild.
I think we're realizing I think the height of social media, and not to say it's hit its peak or anything like that, but I think the kind of newness, it takes a
Yeah.
while to kind of wear off. And
Yeah.
I think we have Instagram, there are all these like Snap and Vine and, all these other, YouTube Shorts, and we have TikTok and we have all these different places where you can find it. So it no longer feels like something like I need to consume it now because you can consume it at any time. So like that shiny thing has
Yes.
kind of worn off. And so I think that's part of the reason why TikTok does so well is that for a lot of people is that it is so specific. And actually, I was listening to something, I think it was this past week, where they were talking about the shift that Meta is actually doing on Instagram because of TikTok, but it's interest engagement, not necessarily user engagement. So, where TikTok is very much like the things that you search, the things that you spend time watching, the things that you save, they show you more of that style of content or that whatever. That Instagram is starting to do that as well. So instead of it being followers or people you might know or people like doing it kind of that way or using some SEO type stuff where it's a
Yeah.
lot more interest.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like that.
And then even I think Gary Vee actually has talked about this quite a bit the past like year or so that we are moving from a social media market to an interest media market.
Wow. So wild how different it is because it's not social anymore, it's
Oh.
so different. I mean, when I think about it, I don't go on TikTok often because I get really I
Oh
can't put it
yeah.
down. It's like,
I'm like, "Ooh, how does that suck me in? How
oh,
does it do that?"
I really have to like not go on it because I just get so sucked in the second it's so good. And when I do though, a lot of times I'm going to search for something. I'm like, I'll do
Yes.
a lot for searching for the boys for toy ideas and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, or like
I'll
a
go to TikTok.
recipe or a
Yeah.
this, and like 20 minutes later, I'm still there and I have no recipe.
I'm like, "Why am I on?" And I'm just like, "Oh, that's hysterical. Oh, that's funny." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't get off." It's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's like
I
the
love
genius, but I love like all of these like again, when we talk about these types of conversations, like I love how I think so many times we think we need to be this certain thing. And I love that again, even recognizing like, oh, I get sucked in here. I love reality TV. I love these things
yeah,
that we can be all of this, be all of yourself, and it be something that people love. And again, hire you for,
yeah,
which whatever you're trying to work on in your life, if it's your business, if it's, your health, if it's whatever it is, it's like understanding you need to be or listen like you are right now in rooms where these conversations are having where this person has already done this. This
mm,
person has already experienced this because then it gives you this like energetic touch point
yeah,
of like, you're like, I'm wanting to have kids, or I'm not sure how I'm going to balance things, or I'm wanting to start a business, but I have kids. Like, and you listen to
mhm,
somebody like Meg talk about her wanting to burn her business to the ground and
yeah,
like that being a very normal thing. I think it
yeah,
starts to normalize. If I want to be the frequency of this person, if I want to create this life for myself, I need to understand the emotionality and like the energetic kind of blueprint of other people who have gone before and like benchmark myself.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a great way to think about it. Yeah, because it's a lot of people won't. That's why I'm very open about it. I want to share what truly we've gone through. And it just because you've reached a certain level of success or you admire someone doesn't mean that they haven't had usually they've had a lot of the shit to get through to get
Yeah.
there. And they're gonna continue. It's like
Yeah.
we're all human. Like no one I was listening to a podcast with Jennifer Aniston was on. I mean, she feels like untouchable in many ways. And she was just like such a normal human when I was listening to this podcast. Like, wow, she's just a good person. We forget that like we're all people.
Like that they gotta eat, you
Yeah.
gotta sleep. Yeah, we're all just trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
like listening to conversations like this, I think give you a much better perspective of what
Yeah.
that actually looks like to be that person that you want to be or to have those things that you
Great.
want to have. So
Great.
the last thing that I kind of always ask all of our guests on the podcast is that if there was one piece of advice you could give somebody to become the frequency, to
Mm,
achieve what they want, to create this life for themselves that they don't have yet, but they know they can see it like clear vision
yeah.
in their it's in their cards. What would be that like one piece of advice?
Ooh, I love this question. I when I think about the first thing you said, the word that came to my mind was like embodiment. And what is that version of me? What are like the questions they're asking? What are the words they're using? So a great example is like back in the day, I would say, "Oh, that's too expensive," or
Mhm.
"We can't afford that." And I started to go, "Oh, wow, I got that from my mom." And I was like, "Love her, but she doesn't
Same.
do this work."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I wanna stop, like, believing that." Like, sure, maybe the bank account doesn't reflect that right now, but, like, if I keep saying that, that's what's gonna be my life, and so I stopped saying that, and I was like, "Ooh, that's something that we're gonna buy one day. Like, that's something we're saving for. That's something we're working towards. That's a luxury item versus expensive," you know?
Yeah.
And just even those kind of, like, word changes started to posture me differently, and the other thing too is kind of what we were talking back to motivation or creativity is I would ask myself, like someone who, when I was just starting my business and wanted to get to six figures, someone who's making six figures, what are they doing every single day in their business? How are they approaching their
Mhm.
content? And so many people I'll work with in the beginning stages, they're treating their content like a hobby, like we were saying. And I'm like, well, that's not going to make you six figures. If you're using mainly content as your way to bring in clients, you got to treat it like a job. And that's why
Yeah.
when people go, "Why is your content bringing in clients? Like, what's the trick?" I'm like, I treat it like a job because it is. It's my job. It's like literally my livelihood. And I think once that flipped, even my husband got on board in terms of like taking a picture that he didn't want to take. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, please be an Instagram husband for a second. This makes us money. Like
Yeah.
literally, that's money. And so that mindset flip really helped because, especially in the beginning, you do feel like you're working so many hours for such little pay. And it can be very hard during that messy middle. But if you keep going at it, you're like, how would a six figure, seven figure earner act? What questions would they ask? How would they invest? How would they just like confidently show up in the world? So I hope that helps. But that's kind of like what I'm.
Yeah. I love that. No, I mean, essentially you're saying like observe people that have what you want, are doing what you want to do, and start to you're not copying, but you're starting to be like, how can I embody some of these qualities, which is again kind of what this whole podcast and these conversations are about. So
Yeah.
I am really, really grateful. I think there's so many things and just like little nuggets in here that people can like, oh gosh, I gotta write that down. I put that jot that down in my notes. So
Yeah.
um, I
Yeah.
thank you so much again, Megan, for being here. If you haven't, again, already followed her on Instagram at Megan Yelaney. Yelaney is Yelaney. Also, meganyelaney.com is where you can check out all of her stuff. She just did a beautiful new rebrand. Her website's beautiful. So you should just go
Pretty.
look to look.
It is pretty. I will say that.
Then I will put all the ways to like find her and stuff like that in the show notes for
Great.
you. But thank you so much again, Megan, for just coming and chatting. And I just love you so much.
I love you. This was so great. Thank you.
Cheers.